everybody came in like totally prepared and professional. I was like, I'm not that professional. But I did print lyrics for the singers. I came in with my manila envelope all like, wow, look at me. I'm a musical director.
So Steve, just a few questions from me that I thought the audience might want to hear from you, but you've obviously been playing with Billy for a long time.
Yeah, it's 40 years now. Which, yeah, it's unheard of in our business.
How have you maintained such a good relationship with Billy? I mean, lots of big musical artists, they don't stick together for that long. What's the secret?
Yeah, and even if they do, you know, we get to see the behind-the-scenes stuff. When one guy's at one dressing room and the other dressing room is a completely different space, and make sure they don't meet backstage, you know? They get on stage and, you know, but you know it. You know the chemistry. You can. I always say to Billy, we don't need pyro because the best special effect we have is the chemistry between us.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I mean, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's the punk rock thing of, you know, Billy loves his band and he loves hanging with people, you know, with the band members. You never feel like you're hired, or he always, you know, he's, from the very get-go, I was included as a co-songwriter. It was always accepted that, you know, I contributed. We come from the very different musical backgrounds, which I think makes the music more interesting, because then you can draw on influences that are, you know, Billy loves, you know, obviously came up with, you know, Elvis and the Doors and kind of roots rock stuff, and then that fed into the punk rock thing. And I came from the, you know, late 60s, early 70s guitar heroes like Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix and all that stuff. So together, we kind of, and also I have to give credit to our producer, Keith Forsey, who made those classic records with us, who came from the disco background. So that's why those records, you know, I mean, if you look at, you know, the Rebel Yell album, you know, Flesh for Fantasy, Eyes Without a Face, that are nothing like Blue Highway. So we're all adding in, you know, into the gumbo of stuff. So I think that, and the fact is, you know, I respect the guy so much, and I respect what he's done, and, you know, I respect the songs. After a certain amount of time, the songs take on a life of their own, and they're as much part of you as they are us. We may have written them and stuff, but they're your lives. I mean, when people tell me, yeah, you know, I remember, you know, we're all at an age now, maybe our parents had passed on or something, and they say, yeah, you know, we do these meet and greets. Yeah, my mom was banging on the door. You know, shut that shit off. You know, that crazy guy with the blonde hair. And now, and maybe their parents, and they remember that with love. You know, and so now the songs are part of your lives, and now obviously, you know, there's. I love it when people bring their kids who are just starting to play guitar and stuff. And man, if I could have done a meet and greet when I saw Led Zeppelin, you know, or you know, I try and, you know, interchange on online. I have Facebook, and if someone asks a question, because man, if I could have, you know, asked Jeff Beck a question when I used to camp out for shows and wait outside the hotel to get an order. I did the same shit. And I try, and when I get up on stage, I know I'm taking this. When I get on stage, I try and convey that feeling that I had to you guys, that when I went to my early concerts, you know, give you back that same feeling. And, you know, it's never, you know, one thing I'll say about Billy, every gig is different. He's unpredictable, which is brilliant. What he says in between songs is going to be different each night, and we kind of vamp on stuff. And he's very real, and I love that about the guy. And you know, I mean, I've vacationed with his family, and we have, you know, when we sit down to write a song, we talk about experiences that we had together with, you know, parents and all this kind of, all the stuff that goes into emotional, you know, having some emotional content.
It's a much longer answer than I thought.
Oh, I can ramble.
One thing that really struck me about the performance last night is, you're known for being a bit of a technically brilliant guitarist, but the songs always seem to shine through. That kind of emotion kind of comes through. So it's got like a muso guitar player, even though you kind of have the technical ability of a virtuoso. How does that work? How do you get the songs out?
The songs are key, king. My job, it's from the very conception of the song is to make. I don't know. I look at songwriting or playing guitar more like a director than a guitar player. I've never understood. First thing I want to know is the lyrics, because that's my roadmap. Okay, what am I supposed to convey? How can I put into musical terms and guitar stylings the story? And that's probably also why I've lasted this long with Billy, because he knows I don't have a separate agenda. I'm not waiting for that 1 minute of guitar solo or stuff. It's my job is to make the song as great as possible, and if that means a guitar solo, great. If it doesn't, then that doesn't call for it. So song is key. And I'm a fan of Billy's voice. I mean, when I sit down to play guitar, if I'm not practicing, if I'm just writing a riff or something, that guy's voice is in my head, and I go, okay, what would he do? What would that? After 40 years, it's undeniable. Sometimes, it's like I can almost guess. If I bring in a musical idea, I can guess what he would bring to it.
Reading up about you ahead of this, and I noticed the many iconic artists that you worked with in the past, Vince Neil, Michael Jackson, etc. You work with so many big names. How does that work? How do you build those relationships and get great results out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a session musician. I don't read music. I started to read music when I was a kid, and I went to a music high school, and it was like fuddy-duddy stuff. And, I couldn't relate. I had a guitar teacher that was like trying to teach me all this, old-timey stuff, and I was like, I want to play Foxy Lady. He had no idea what that was. So, but I guess through largely through the '80s, as I made my name with Billy, I got called upon to do other things. I tell other musicians, I'll give you a small example, but I say the littlest idea or something, always say yes, okay? If somebody asks you to play on something, say yes. You probably know I won a Grammy for Top Gun, and the way that came about. So the way that came about was that we were doing Whiplash Smile, and Keith Forsey, our producer, had started with Giorgio Moroder doing those Donna Summers records. Well, the keyboard player on those was Harold Faltermeyer. Harold came in to play keyboards on Whiplash Smile, and in passing, we were in New York, and he said, Harold was starting to do movie sound. He did Axel F for Beverly Hills Cop. He said, I'm working on this new movie of Tom Cruise. Oh, the risky business guy. Oh, okay, yeah. He said, I've got the theme, and the movie's called Top Gun, and it's about fighter pilots being trained at, Air Force. Would you want to play on it? And so on a week, we were at that time working about five days a week, and on a Saturday, I remember this, we took this is the days of recording tape, now everything's digital, took the multi-track off and put on the Top Gun, and I was already set up, my gear and everything, and he put it up there and said, okay, I can play that. And then he said, there's a little bit of a solo. Okay, I can play that, give you a couple ideas. The whole session probably took about 2.5 hours, and I forgot about it afterwards because it was an afterthought. And then Harold, the movie was a success. And then Harold called me, he lives in Germany, he called me, we got nominated for Grammy. And I went, yeah. They don't let people like me get Grammys. especially it was nominated for, what was cool is it was nominated for Best Pop Instrumental, and that meant the performance. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And so, as I was living in New York, Grammys were in Los Angeles, I would have never gone there otherwise for the fact that Billy and I were performing. We were going to do To Be a Lover. So I was already there, and I thought, what the hell, I'll go down there in the afternoon, you know. And we'd sit down, and all these other people that were nominated for Grammys were like, I don't know if you know who Doc Severinsen is. He was the music director at the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson. And then there's me with, 6-inch high hair, and blue sparkles. I'm like, fuck these guys. I'm not going to win. I was like, I don't even want the Grammy. It's not rock and roll. And Harold's like, we're gonna win this fucking thing. No, we're not. Look at me. And we won the fucking Grammy. So once again, had I not been in Billy's band, recording Whiplash Smile, that would have never happened. And actually, I wasn't there, but Billy tells me that there was a piece of music. Harold was trying to figure out what the theme for Top Gun was, and couldn't figure it out. And he was in another studio at the same time, and I guess there was a little piece of music that Harold was going to do for Fletch, the Chevy Chase movie. And Billy walked by and said, "That's your theme." Like he heard it and heard the melody, and Harold wasn't even thinking of that. So once again, it all comes back to Billy Idol.
Nice.
So you mentioned Harold Faltermeyer, a long list of all these people we keep mentioning of people that you've worked with. Is there someone that, a hero or an influence of yours you've always liked to work with but never have?
Wow, so many of them have passed on. They say, "Oh, who could, what would your dream band be?" That said, I like a lot of obscure stuff, and I find now with, especially with the internet and YouTube, you can go. I spend hours looking at these old videos and now performances of stuff. I've always been a Peter Gabriel fan.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. I liked him from the first moment I saw him on the Midnight Special with Genesis, dressed up as some alien, and that early prog rock stuff. For me, those guitar players. The reason people say, "Well, you play Billy Idol, as a punk rock guy. Why do you like progressive rock guitar players?" And the reason I do like them is because they utilize a lot of different styles. And when I play with Billy, I don't look at, there's guitar players that are like Eric Clapton or Eddie Van Halen who are absolutely brilliant, and they play one guitar part pretty much through the song. I'm more from the Jimmy Page school of textures and different guitar maybe comes in into, I like to paint colors into the song. And those early guitar players, the prog rock guys, I recently got to meet Robert Fripp, who was my hero from King Crimson, and we were on tour in Europe. His wife was opening for us, Toya, and Robert sent me some just beautiful emails after watching us, and I got chills. I never imagined that Robert Fripp, who was my guitar hero, would number one, even see what I do or appreciate it. But a lot of those guitar players, they played flamenco, they played classical, a little bit of jazz and all that. And, that gave me the kind of scope to present, these chords to Billy, which became Eyes Without a Face, and we were thinking, is this right? Can we do this? And we both said, yeah, well, look at a Beatles record. Every song's a little bit different, and every album is a little bit different. So I like a lot of the early progressive rock guys. And Peter Gabriel is certainly one of those who's stood the test of time.
Great answer. I didn't expect that at all, so that's really interesting. Last question for me, and then I'll throw it out to the audience to ask some questions. One moment, sir. You're a little bit too proactive there. You're first. What's next, Steve? What's the future hold? You and Billy, you solo stuff. Have you got any exciting things you can share with everyone?
Well, we've already recorded 5 new songs, and they're really fucking good. I guess we're in that category of classic rock artists or whatever. And I see a lot of these guys. You read an interview with so and so, and they say, "Yeah, why bother doing new music?" Da, 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 da. For us, it's just like breathing. We have to do it. It's not even a question of it. And we embrace the new generation of songwriters and producers. There's 2 guys we work with, Tommy English and Joe Janiak, that are we've developed a relationship with them, starting with The Roadside. Tommy co-wrote Bitter Taste, and we work with them, and we don't. It's like the family and the members of the band almost. So now we're really hitting a stride working with them. And originally the plan was to do another EP, but it's been so prolific, and so we're going to do an album. We're not,
Thank you, Steve. Right, question from you guys.
First of all, thank you for my youth, the riff of my youth. That's what I call it. Thank you for that. You're talking about conception, and on Eyes, I just want to know when it was born. I'm familiar with the addiction premise and the film from the 60s, but I would love to know that moment it was born, if possible.
Oh, the song?
Yes.
Well, musically, okay, so we had gone out on tour for the first, wow, that sounded so New York, tour. It comes out now and again. We had gone out to support the first album, and I remember my salary at that time from Chrysalis Records was $250 a week. So people think, when you have a record in the stores that you're rich and famous and all this, and it's the companies are funding the records, and you're out there, and it's a long time before you see any profits before that. So I was living in the basement in my parents' house. I had moved before I was with Billy. I lived in Manhattan with my previous band, and then I joined Billy, and I moved back into my parents' house in Kew Gardens, Queens, and I had a crappy little radio, and the only station that would come in clearly was CBS FM, which was an oldies station, and they played things like a lot of 50s doo-wop, Frankie Valli, Four Seasons, all this kind of stuff. That's what they specialized in. And these chords, these kind of 1950s, musically it's called 1457, which is the name of the chords in the scale that go up. And they're very standard, a lot of 50s music like that. And I've always thought of Billy as having one foot in that kind of traditional, obviously Elvis and a lot of that stuff, he grew up with, and I remember, watching Elvis on the '68 comeback special, and Billy is the Elvis of our generation, and he, they come around once in a lifetime, guys like him. So, so these chord changes, I'm sitting around and we were in rehearsals for Rebel Yell, and I'm just sitting there, and I got in about a half hour early, and I'm playing these chord changes, going, and Billy walks in and goes, "Hey, what's that?" And I go, "Oh, it's just a doo-wop thing that I heard on the radio." And at that time, he had a knapsack, and he'd keep a couple of folders of lyrics that he was writing, and he had Eyes Without a Face, and it just fit together seamlessly. He started singing these lyrics over the chords. And we said, well, that kind of cool, but it doesn't sound like anything we would do. And then Keith Forsey, our producer, came in. He'd regularly check up on us, and we said, "Oh, we've got to." And it was just Billy and I on it. We hadn't even rehearsed it with the band. He said, "Oh, we got this funny little idea." And Keith said, "Well, you have to record that." Really? Yeah, you have to record that. So.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Next. Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you for a wonderful, wonderful, amazing weekend. Thank you so much.
Great, yeah.
And I don't know if everybody already knows the story, I hope not, but how did you end up with Billy? You're saying you're living in your parents' basement and Billy's coming off of Generation X. How did you two get together?
So the band that I was in previous to Billy we had recorded a record for Island Records. A band, please excuse the band name, the Fine Malibus. Terrible. We were doomed from the start. And these guys were all from Clarksville, Tennessee. They had a loft in New York. And what was great was in that building. So I started, I'll try and keep this as short, this is a long story, but I had gone to the high school performing arts, which was the Fame School, but I dropped out because there was no guitar curriculum, and I joined a cover band, and I started playing all those clubs that Twisted Sister played in Long Island, tri-state area, we call it. And so I did that, and then I realized, well, I need to play original music. I found these guys, I joined the band, we lived in the music building, and the other musicians, it was 10 floors. Johnny Thunders lived there from the Dolls. Cyndi Lauper, I used to hear her practicing in the morning. It was a great environment. I'm still friends with some of the people that lived in that building. But the band was kind of ill-fated. We went and recorded a record that was never released. And at that time, we caught the eye of Aucoin Management, Bill Aucoin, who was the manager of Kiss. And Bill was honest with me, and he said, you know, you have a lot of talent. And I had written a song called First Day in the Rain, and he said, can Peter Criss record it? So he knew I was a writer, not just a guitar player. I had the ability to write songs. And I left the band, and Aucoin Management took me under their wing, and we placed an ad in the Village Voices, which is where you found musicians, and it said, guitarist looking to form band, need everybody else, you know, singer, drummer. I had nothing, you know, so I started to meet with musicians, and about 2 weeks later, Bill called me and said, do you know who Billy Idol is? And by then, I was out at the clubs, you know, 3 nights in a week, and Dancing with Myself was being played at every club, and there was a radio station in New York that played a lot of English imports, so I knew Generation X. I said, yeah, the guy from Generation X. He said, yeah, we're managing him, he's just moved to New York, and you guys should meet. And we met up, and it wasn't like an immediate, okay, this is the plan or anything like that, but I was smart because I told him, I said, look, I know every musician in New York, which I did. He was looking to put together a band. I'll help you audition the drummers and the bass players. And I said, when it comes time for the guitar slap, I hope you'll consider me. And I don't know if he auditioned other guitar players or not, but I got the gig. So. Yeah.
First of all, iconic performance in an iconic location. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that ever again. Now that you've done this, is there a venue that you have never played and you wish I would love to do a concert there?
Yeah, I mean, there's some that I don't know if they even have shows there, but one of my favorite videos is when Pink Floyd played live in Pompeii. So, I don't know if anybody. We've gotten to do a lot of, I mean, we returned last year to play Wembley Arena, and Billy had never played Wembley Arena, and for him, I mean, I got to play with Billy at, both with Billy and Michael Jackson at Madison Square Garden, which is where I used to camp out and watch shows and go to, I saw The Who there, and my first concert was Emerson, Lake and Palmer at Madison Square Garden. I saw Yes there, you know, and to play there is like, so for Billy to go back, you know, to return to England and play Wembley Arena was really special, and has his family there and everything. So that was a really special one. Now in the 80s we played in Red Rocks, which is, if you've seen that YouTube video, it's a stage kind of built into the side of the mountain. We haven't returned there since 1985, and I've just been told that next year we might do Red Rocks.
Hey,
Hey, buddy.
how you doing? So a couple things. One is, I wouldn't be standing here right now if it weren't for you guys and our dear friend pulling me up to sing 3 years ago, and now I do this. And that. And we're going to see you in Clearwater a week from Friday.
Okay, right.
So I've been looking more into your flamenco style stuff recently. I love that. Are you going to put anything else out, like flamenco a go-go, or what do you think?
Well, okay, so there's, as I mentioned, you know, all of my early music teachers were kind of fuddy-duddy, I couldn't relate to them, and I went to a music camp. I met this guitar teacher who had basically, when we all met him, and there was only about 12 students. It was actually it was a music camp that Mariah Carey also went to in Long Island. And when he met us for the first day, he explained he was a flamenco guitar player, which I knew nothing. I didn't even know what flamenco was. And he said he was a Romanian gypsy who had escaped from the Nazis in the Second World War with nothing but his guitar. And when he put that guitar on his lap and played, you could tell that it saved his life. This music and flamenco, which I didn't know anything about, and I immediately respected this man, and like flamenco is like the speed metal of acoustic guitar. And there was a very famous guitarist named Paco de Lucia who was, if you ever get a chance, go on YouTube and watch Paco de Lucia, because he is astounding. Absolutely, he passed away a couple of years ago, but astounding. And I just fell in love with flamenco music, and it's always been, it's the story, you know, the music and everything is a story of a nomadic people. There's always a story behind the music about how they've lost their homeland, and these are themes and ideas which are very common to all of us and our grandparents, and no matter where you come from, there's always somebody trying to put you down or tell you you can't do this, or not respecting you. And flamenco is like very uplifting. So Flamenco Go-Go happened because I had gone out on tour with Vince Neil, and we supported Van Halen, and which was incredible. Eddie was a buddy of mine, and we had great times on the road. I absolutely loved the guy, and was a hero of mine. But at that time, grunge had just hit, and all of the 80s rock bands and stuff were getting dropped from the labels and couldn't get arrested and all this kind of stuff. It was and I had seen this kind of change before, even when in New York, when it was all this kind of like classic rock, Zeppelin, all these big bands and everything, and then suddenly, new wave hit, and it was like a whole different change, and you either embraced it or you were left back. So we finished the Vince Neil tour, and it was the height of debauchery. Everything you've heard about Vince Neil is true, and more. I had a good time. That bus pulled up to a strip club after every show. Yeah, and but it was time to kind of I said, why am I doing this? I need to like reconnect with why I was playing music, and I got a little burnt out. I went to see Paco de Lucia, and I saw 3,000 people going crazy for this guy playing an acoustic guitar on stage, and I said, I need to reconnect with that side of me. So that's why I did Flamenco Go-Go, and maybe someday I'll do it. Those kind of records are, doing that is, you almost have to not play electric guitar when you're doing that, and that's what I did for almost a year. I didn't play electric guitar, so. But right now I'm having too much fun playing electric guitar.
I heard some of that in your solo last night.
Yeah, my solo. The reason I do that acoustic solo is because when we opened for Van Halen, Vince goes, "Hey man, you got to do a guitar solo." I go, "Yeah, whatever I do is, in about 45 minutes, that EVH guy's gonna come out here and play Eruption. And I ain't fucking with that. So I said, well, what I can do is I play this flamenco guitar. Let me do a flamenco solo. It's nothing like what Ed's gonna do, and it's something that I do that I think is unique to me. So that's why I do it.
Steve?
Where are you? Where are you?
Hi,
Hey!
Steve. Thank you so much for doing this. I mean, it takes, we want to thank you because a lot of artists don't take time like you and Billy to talk to us. And so it's always great to hear stories from you.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing opportunity for all of us.
You guys are great. I mean, you guys are
we
really
appreciate
great.
you so much and
Yeah.
for doing this. But my question is, with it being Easter, who would you resurrect to jam with today? And what song would you jam to?
I mean, the obvious one is Jimi Hendrix. And from everything I've read and from people that knew him, they've said that he was a sweetheart, that he was shy and gracious. And if you ever watched the interview with him on Dick Cavett, there's a great YouTube clip, and Dick Cavett says, what does it feel like being the greatest guitar player in the world? He said, I'm not even the greatest guitar player in this seat, He was humble, and that's how you get better, by being humble, And so, I mean, Hendrix was, it's almost like somebody designed the perfect guitar player, because he got his start as playing on the blues circuit and learning all those blues things. So he had that foundation, and then he goes to England, gets discovered, and it's the height of the psychedelic era. So he's combining blues with, effects, and it was the beginning of recording techniques that hadn't been used before. So, yeah, he'd be the guy,
Hey, Steve.
Hey.
Just a quick technical question. I'm a hobbyist luthier, and I'd like to build a guitar that I could play blues and rockabilly. What pickups would you recommend for that?
Oh. I mean, there's so many incredible pickup designers now. This is a great era to be a guitar player right now. In the 90s, not so much. 80s, not, because it was only big corporations. But now they have all these kind of, like mom and pop people making guitar pedals and pickups and all that. I endorse a company called Bare Knuckles, and they're out of England. And you can always email them and tell them and give them a description of what you're looking for, examples, musical examples. The reason I ended up with them, I'm the first American player to start using their pickups. Now everybody does, but the guy who founded the company was in a Ozzy Osbourne cover band, but he was a player. He could play all that Randy Rhoads and Zakk Wylde stuff. And I thought, well, that's great, because I won't, nothing better than having the guy making this stuff actually use it. So, Bare Knuckles, the guy's name is Tim, and you can you can go on. He'll answer you and describe what you're looking for, and he'll work with you. Yeah.
Steve, man, I just wanted to say you guys fucking killed it last night. It was fucking amazing. Fucking awesome. One of my favorite songs of all time is Dirty Diana.
Yeah.
You fucking shred the shit out of that song. Can you tell me how you got involved with that and how you got involved with Michael Jackson?
So, I was signed to Warner Brothers by Ted Templeman, who was the head of A&R, but was the guy that produced the classic Van Halen records. And I really liked Ted because we would go out to dinner, and then after bottle of wine or whatever, we'd go back up to his office and hang and play records and stuff. It's the guys that are at the record companies that are still music fans. Those are the guys that you can call on and go, hey man, if you're in the studio and you're having a problem or whatever, they'll come down and help you sought that out because they're fans of music to begin with. And I love Ted, and he did the Doobie Brothers and Van Halen and all these great records. So Ted, the story that I got was Ted was friends with Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson's producer. And after the success of Beat It on Thriller, they were working on the Bad album, and Quincy called Ted and said, "Hey man, we got another rocker type track. Who can you suggest?" And Ted put my name in the hat, and I got a call. I was living in New York, and I got a call from Quincy, and at first I didn't believe it. Quincy Jones. But he said Ted, when he said he got my number from Ted Templeman, I said, great. And I was very nervous for that because, as I mentioned, I'm not a session guitar player, and I was used to working in the studio with myself, Billy, and our producer Keith, and an engineer. Very small little unit, no entourage, nothing, no big time stuff. And I flew out to Los Angeles to do a session, and I'm thinking, oh man, I'm going to be really nervous. There's going to be all this entourage around there. The monkey's going to be there, and all this crazy stuff. And, I'll be, and also, I'm so used to working with Billy, and our producer Keith was very forgiving. If I couldn't get a part or whatever, give me the time to work it out. So here I am, they phoned me out, put me in a beautiful hotel, and I got to deliver. And I walk into the studio, and it's just Michael and Quincy and the engineer. It's the same as the Billy Idol session. So I went, oh, I feel at home, cool. And Michael was really musical, and just, they didn't put music in front of me, sheet music, which I would have been lost on. And Michael said, oh, they played me a bit of the backing track, and went, da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, I can play that, go. And we kind of, it was a very quick session, and then they said, well, what would you want to play on it? And the version that I played on was like 7 minutes long or something. So they eventually edited it down. But I felt really at home, and they were so accommodating, and Quincy was I was a Quincy Jones fan because he had done all these great records and soundtracks and stuff. So yeah, it was amazing to meet Michael, but also to meet Quincy as well. So, yeah.
Awesome.
We've got time for 2 more quick questions over here.
Fantastic show. You are one of my biggest heroes guitar-wise. As a mentor, you mentioned Jimmy Page. We're on the same page. I'm curious, I did not realize you were from the tri-state area. What's your take on Buck Dharma's playing?
Oh, wow. I got a message from them recently because Buck Dharma is the guitar player from Blue Oyster Cult. I like those guys because they're short like me. They're little dudes. So I always, love Angus Young too. I like all the short guys, like Prince too. I'm kidding. I like some tall guitar players. But sometimes I meet these bands and they're really tall, and Billy's not. Billy's like 5'10", and we fit good on stage together. Sometimes we'll meet these guys, but let me think of a tall band. Oh, the Killers. Those guys are really tall. We're like, hey. But Blue Oyster Cult. I mean, any musician, you love your hometown heroes, and boy, Blue Oyster Cult, when they did Don't Fear the Reaper, I thought that was fantastic. There's a little bit of Spanish guitar in there, and obviously it became a skit on Saturday Night Live with the cowbell, but there's guys like that, and Leslie West from Mountain, who were my heroes, like Leslie's from Queens, and we love our hometown heroes. So and a really good guitar player, really fine, and they're a good band. A lot of people don't realize that Patti Smith wrote songs with them in the early days. They were all kind of friends and stuff. So
Yeah.
Steve.
Over here.
hey,
How you doing?
thanks so much for doing this. We all had an amazing time. The concert was just fabulous. So good. So, in the last couple of years, we've really lost a lot of amazing guitarists. Are you seeing yourself as a bit of a patriarch at this point? You know, you're one of the most fabulous guitar players out there, and the nostalgia I think you're bringing to the instrument is really important. So, how do you see yourself fitting in with the legends of some of the amazing guitar players?
Yeah, we've lost a lot of, the Jeff Beck. You know, I mean, Eddie Van Halen, you know, all of us in the business, Ed had been ill with cancer for many years. You know, went into remission, but it was, you know, one of Ed's closest friends is Steve Lukather from Toto, who's a phenomenal guitar player and a dear friend of mine. And I would call Steve occasionally, how's Ed doing? It's not good. He's going for treatment in Europe, and you know. So we were sort of prepared for that. Jeff Beck was like out of the blue, and Jeff Beck's one of those guys who, you know, he started in like 1965, and every era he would embrace new music. Either, you know, he just never rested on his laurels, and it was, for us guitar players, it was required listening. Every Jeff Beck record, when it would come out, you had to get it to hear what Jeff was doing. And the way that he played technically, there will never be a Jeff Beck, because his proficiency and the way he approached the instrument is unlike any other guitar player. Didn't play with a pick. What he was hearing in his head was like Bulgarian chant music, and he'd play it, and where's Jeff getting that from, you know? And, well, I don't know. We couldn't even, he's one of those guitar players. There's only 2 guitar players that I've gone to see that when I watched, I couldn't figure out what they were doing. It was totally alien to me. And that was Jeff Beck and a guy named Adrian Belew. And Adrian plays in a way that's very unorthodox, and he was in King Crimson for a while. So Jeff Beck really took us by surprise. I'm one of those guitar players that I don't get on guitar polls or anything. I always say I'm the kind of guitar player that people that don't care about guitar love, because it's never in my mind to do something to impress other guitar players. And there was something that I read a little quote from Les Paul. And he said, Les Paul used to, even though there's a guitar named after him, he and his wife, Mary Ford, used to make records and perform and all this. And Les Paul said, he gave a guitar interview, and he said one time, I forgot who it was, Duke Ellington or somebody came to see him play, and he knew about it. And he thought, I'm going to really impress, I'm going to show him, And it was the worst show that Les Paul ever played. He said, never play for the musicians in the audience. And that's, I don't really, I'm not on, here's the thing, I'm not on the Rolling Stone list of 100 greatest guitar players. And Billy Idol, Billy Idol's not on the list of 100 greatest singers. What we do is not for the writers of Rolling Stone. It's first of all, you have to do what's in your heart. You can't fake it. And I believe that other people react to that. You know it's real, and it resonates with you, and that is the idea behind the whole thing. Is if we make ourselves happy and we listen to our music, or I listen to my guitar player and I go, yeah, that's what I would want to hear. That's it. I'm happy. I don't care about polls or this and that. I don't know about legacy or what I present. All I know is, as I said before, the feeling that I got when I went to see The Who at Madison Square Garden in 1974, that's the feeling that I want you guys to get. I'm still that kid that looked up and went, that's fucking Pete Townsend. and he's playing Won't Get Fooled Again. And that feeling is it. And I saw Angus Young say exactly the same thing that the feeling he's, you know, AC/DC are very Led Zeppelin influenced, early Zeppelin. And Angus went, you know, when Zeppelin toured down in Australia, Angus went to see them. He goes, that's what I want to give people, what I felt. And you draw on that, and that's, you know, if I do that, success.
Awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have time for today. Big thank you to Steve Stevens. So thanks very much everybody for coming this weekend. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Look out for the next episode, which will be coming soon. And there'll be lots of information coming your way about the release of the film. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.